Well, the patch is here. My laryngitis hasn't gotten any better, and loot has been buffed to fuck. Okay, so in today's patch, SDF ended up outlining that they wanted to start working on this vision that SDF had. And today we started with a massive buff to loot in general, both in normals and HR. And it is kind of crazy, and I think in a good way, and I'll explain what I mean in a minute. But for those of you wondering what it used to be like versus how it is now, most of it is a buff, but there are a couple of nerfs, and I think the nerfs are justifiable. Also, there's some hidden changes that have to do with magic damage that weren't really outlined in the patch, but are in the game now. There are also places that uniques drop now that didn't used to, and there's some bugs. But we'll talk about that. But before I get into everything with the loot system, I do have some data mined things to share with you. One of the patch notes said that we're supposed to get some new quests today, right? They're not active yet, but they are in the game. I don't know exactly what vendors are going to have it or what the quests are going to entail, but I do have the rewards for you. First up, we have a Spectral Night Campfire, which looks kind of dope. I think this is going to be really, really cool. Again, earnable in-game as one of the skin quests that you'll be able to do when it goes live this evening. Second, we have a new dance emote. This to me looks like it's either the Wednesday Addams dance from the Wednesday Addams television show, the Addams Family television show that they rehashed, or it's Thriller. And being like Halloween themed, I think Thriller makes the most sense. But that's just my guess. I mean, it could be anything, but this looks like Thriller hands. Like that looks like Thriller hands to me, right? And then last but certainly not least, we have the Philidian man cat. So there's going to be a male Dex cat that you'll be able to earn instead of just having the female one. That's pretty much it. Those are the rewards. Anyway, on to the loot stuff. Okay, so first let's talk about artifacts. Artifacts and uniques are different. Now there are unique artifacts, which is on loot table number 8, and then there are unique items that are on loot table number 7. I should take a step back first before we start talking about this. When you kill something, there is a series of dice rolls, 2, 3, 4, whatever, depending on the mob that you're killing, that determines whether or not you end up on a certain loot table. Okay, and the tables are numbered. Tables 1 through 3 are like gray to green. Then table 4 is blues, 5 is purples, 6 is legendary items, orange ones, 7 is unique, so like a random rolled pair of loose trousers, but they're unique grade, or like that creamy yellowy color or whatever. And then loot table 8 is unique quality artifact weapons and shields. All right, named items. Okay, so when we talk about artifacts, we're talking about table 8, and uniques, we're talking about table 7. So when we're talking about artifact odds, we're talking about the chance for an artifact weapon or shield to be in a certain place or on a certain loot table when you kill a boss or go to loot a room. So at the top here where we see Skull Key, that is the Skull Key door, and Frozen Iron Key is the Frozen Iron Key door, the rooms that have loot in them having a chance to spawn an item in them. So in the case of a Skull Key, it was about a 6% chance for there to be a unique artifact. Now it is a 3% chance. 1 in 33 Skull Key usages will end up having an artifact weapon. Frozen Iron Key was 3.5%, and now it's 1.5, or 1 in 66. If we then go down and look at Warlord, Ghost King, and Lich, they had either a 0.8 or a 1% chance to have a artifact weapon. Now it is 3% across the board for each one flat. Wyvern was nerfed though. They went from 3% chance down to 1.5. My guess here is because the Wyvern is so overly farmed, there's just people that dedicate entire days, weeks to being like just solo farming Wyvern and killing it and trying to loot stuff off of it. It is a faster and lesser contested rotation to kill the Wyvern than it is any of the Inferno bosses. So this kind of makes sense. Now, if they add a 3rd level to the Wyvern adventure or whatever, perhaps we end up seeing that brought back up. But for the time being, it looks like this is why they ended up doing that. Things that were added that were not in the game prior to this patch, well, at least not for a while anyway. Cave Troll is now a 0.1% chance for HR Cave Troll to drop it, 1 in 1,000 kills, and Cyclops also is a 1 in 1,000 chance to get an artifact weapon off of them. The dual boss room has a 0.08 or 1 in 1250 chance to have an artifact weapon, a 1 in 1250 chance to be the dual boss room on Ruins to have that on one of the pedestals, and the Mystic Gem room is a 1 in 833 chance for there to be that weapon or shield in that room as well. Now, Ruins normal and GC normal bosses also now have the ability to drop uniques, meaning Ruins and Goblin Cave. We're not talking about Inferno. Inferno is different. Normal Inferno bosses have a 2.5% chance across the board to drop a unique item. In the case of GC, though, it's a little bit more segregated. GC and Ruins act slightly differently. For the purpose of wearables, it is a 0.5% chance to see a unique item off of them now, or a 1.5% chance to see a unique weapon. Huge. For the legendary luck grade items dropping off of those bosses, it is 5%. But the real big W here is epics. Epic quality loot off of these bosses is now 55%. With 0 luck. Crazy high. Really, really cool. Now on the HR side, GC bosses have a now 20% base chance to drop legendaries. Massive. And for those of you that are wondering about like mob specific loot, like the troll pelt or like wolf pelts, those loot rolls are all on a separate series of loot rolls to determine whether or not there's going to be one of those items on there anyway. Now, for the people wondering about luck and that applying to it, there is still the positives and negatives from before with running more or less luck. So depending on what it is that you're trying to target, you're going to want more luck or less luck. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, I made a luck guide that I would suggest that you guys go and check out that will explain how the luck system works. Oh, and for those of you that want to know, I got a definitive answer from SDF. Luck applies to bards when they're using their fun little unlocky song. It applies when they open the treasure chest. So yes, luck works for Unchained Harmony. You're welcome. Okay, so now for like the minorly buggy stuff. There are a couple of bugs with the loot system as it's written, and they are being actively worked on. I made sure that SDF was aware of them, and there was a note given in the Discord, the official Discord, saying that they knew of it and they were working on it. So what are those bugs? Right now, unique quality grade items, not artifacts, but unique grade items cannot drop out of the treasure hordes on HR or normals at all. They just won't do it. Right now, it's just a bug with the system. Grade 7 loot, the unique quality loot, will not get generated from them. There is a percentage chance in the table where it's supposed to drop, but table 7 isn't a part of that loot pool at the moment, so they have to add it. Also, when you're killing bosses, every once in a great while, which has already been shared once before already, the Dryad shield, the one that reflects 30% damage or whatever, that round shield, that named round shield has a chance to drop as part of the unique loot table, as part of table 7. It's not supposed to be a table 7 item. It's supposed to be a table 8 item. It's supposed to be part of the artifact pool. But right now it's in the wrong table. So that's why some people, if you see them talk about how they got a unique grade or they got a named artifact, they got the Dryad shield specifically off of killing a normal boss, that's why. Because it's just in the wrong loot pool. It's not supposed to drop, but it is. So not game breaking. I mean, it could be much worse. It's not like it's a cinder or something. It's just that one round shield and the rest of them are kind of where they're supposed to be. Now on to some more hidden things. So magic resist was modified for mobs only. And when they say normal mobs, they mean mobs of all grade, but they're not going to be mini bosses or bosses. So that is in effect. They take 25% or they have 25% reduced resistance. It's a minus 25% magic resist. So they take bonus damage from spells. That's what you need to know. And in testing it, like base kit, normal mob, on a shield skeleton, which has a little bit higher of an HP pool than the other skellies, about 6 base magic missiles ended up dropping it. No problem, as long as they were head hits. So yes, much more pronounced magic damage on all of the normal mobs. Now, as far as I am aware, mini bosses were unchanged, but bosses were, and this was another hidden one. So bosses, based on their baseline stats, had 41% magic resist, MDR. That has been reduced now so that their max magic resist is now 17.5% instead, effectively allowing about 40%-ish more damage speed for the kills versus what had been seen up until this point. Now, I know what you're thinking in terms of like Warlock suddenly be able to like speed kill Wyvern and stuff. Let me just first say that Warlocks aren't, and even with this change, in the top 3. Top 3 are going to end up being like Rogue, Barbarian, Bard, and Fighter, especially if they're a longsword Chad fighter, because you can drop the Wyvern very fast with those classes. All of those are somewhere in the 1, 2, and 3 range. Warlock isn't even in the top 3 for speed kills. It actually takes quite a while with the magic damage, or did up until this point. Granted, it'll be a bit faster now, but it's not going to be nearly as fast as what we can see from a Bard just shanking the thing in the face. If you don't believe me, go watch Katie. She's been killing this thing with every conceivable notion of character build and with reckless abandon, full corpo. It's actually an awesome thing to watch. But the main idea here is that there's more magic damage going out to mobs. This has no bearing on PvP whatsoever. On the PvP side of things, nothing has really changed. The only modification now is that gear is more abundant. And like I said, I believe that this personally for me is a good thing. Not that I'm going to benefit from it necessarily in any way, but casual players will. In the case of this game wanting to generate additional players and retain them, one of the best ways to do that is show them that achievable loot is achievable, especially when they're looking to get like really good stuff. And in the case of finding things like purples and legendaries on the regular, because legendaries are dropping off of normal mobs now. Legendaries are part of the normal mobs drop pool, as are purples. Purples always kind of were, but they've been buffed. Almost every chest that you find in Inferno now has a purple or two in it. Royal gems drop considerably more often out of treasure piles now, as do royal treasure in general. I ended up spectating a trio that was clearing out a lich boss or something, and while I was spectating them as they cleared out the treasure pile, each one of them had 2 legendary treasure items each in their inventories, just from a normal treasure pile. So yeah, it's incredibly common to be able to see legendary treasure now. So if you're somebody that's looking to get a treasure chest, for instance, because you need each one of the royal gems, now it's actually within the realm of possibility for somebody that plays casual hours to pull that off. Instead of needing like a 1 in 1,000 drop chance, it's significantly higher now. So there's a whole lot more treasure getting generated. There's a whole lot more higher end loot getting generated, even just in normals, and people are making an awful lot more money on the way out when they leave with all of this stuff. On average, just from the few normal runs that I ran this afternoon just to test it out, 800 and 900 gold each, which brings me to the next part, which is the Expressmen. Expressmen's hidden changes are really nice. So they added a timer to Expressmen at the end. If you're the last person to end up going downstairs to go between levels, you get a 10-second timer on the Expressmen to drop your items in, but you don't have to drag and drop them anymore. Instead, now you can right-click each item into their inventory and it just drops in. And on the back end, when you get back to your inventory, you have the ability to press a button that selects all of your items all at once and allows you to pay for them all at once. Huge massive quality of life improvement, and allows you to rapid fire items into his inventory so you don't end up getting screwed by the timer. Good change. Really good changes all around. So yeah, while the modifications to this might be a little bit more subtle, and there's going to end up being hardcore players that disagree with having more loot involved, I'm looking at you so bad, I know that you don't like this, it tends to be around the crowd that has an awful lot of experience, people that have thousands of hours. Now don't get me wrong, people with thousands of hours are entitled to their opinion, and I know that they want to be able to have like a lot of value in the loot that they gather. But at the same time, those people also with the high hours counts tend to be people that have a lot of time to be able to dedicate to the game, playing it day in and day out. And the reality of it is most people don't have the ability to do that. It also doesn't make them better just because they have better gear. So in the sense of if there's somebody in whites that believes that they can take out somebody in legendaries, now's your ability to be able to do that. It doesn't change anything. The only thing it turns those Timmies into are better loot piñatas. So it makes other people worth killing, if you want to think about it that way. So yeah, it might devalue the find for something amazing by just a little bit, but you'll have more people trying to dip their toe into the harder content and giving people a more worthwhile, I guess, PvP interaction experience that will not only allow us to be able to benefit from killing people that are less experienced by having better gear on, but will also potentially motivate the people that don't typically have a lot of gear to go grab more. Because to be honest, I was getting to the point where I was at 300 gear score inside of 2 normal ruins loops. 2. So in an hour and a half to 2 hours, I had a 300 gear score kit that I didn't have to pay for, and now I can go fuck around and find out. I think that's huge, especially if you're somebody that's a little bit newer to the game, you know, the 200 to 500 hour crowd. Give them a fighting chance, especially if they're trying to do boss runs, right? Start off with a 24 GS kit, end up at 150 to 200 GS by the time you actually get to the boss to try them, and now you've got some stats to work with instead of just fighting him in a gray kit where you maybe found a green or 2 as upgrades. Now people are finding like a whole lot more, and I think that's a benefit. I really do. Anyway, guys, that's what I have for this one. Thank you so much for coming and checking it out. My name again is Onepeg. If you'd be so kind as to sub the channel here, if you find the content that I generate valuable, that would be absolutely amazing. Otherwise, you can come and check me out when I stream every day at twitch.tv/onepeg around 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Literally every day. No work-life balance. None. Not that this is really work. I mean, you know, we talk to people every day for a living. It's a good time. Thank you for lending me your eyeballs, everybody. I really do appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one, okay? Peace.